Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of Caught on the Mic, and I am sincerely excited. I have been listening to this album for a little over a month now. I took a road trip to Colorado, which is a 7.5-hour drive from where I live in Lincoln, Nebraska, Estes Park. I listened to this album the whole way there. I listened to this album the whole way back. I have a favorite song on this album, and it hasn't even come out yet. I'd like to welcome my new friends, Jimmy and Rob, from the band Flight to London. Guys, how the heck are you?
Fantastic.
That's the greatest introduction of all time.
Thanks for the enthusiastic intro, Mike. Man, that's awesome.
Man, I'm sincere about it, though. I mean, I don't bullshit. I tell it the way it is. And what's crazy is you guys have coined the term NEW-stalgia. That is such a fitting term for your style of music. It sets a tone. It sets a mood. I love it. It's everything I love about an album.
Thank you,
man.
So
That's
much.
Awesome. To quote Rocky, I invented it. The term nostalgia. I like when he's punching. Remember when he's punching meat and the guy's like, "Has anyone ever done this?" He's like, "I invented it." I think it was an invention. But
true,
no,
yes.
we really appreciate it, man, because we we're really proud of this record. I know we'll kind of get into that, but yeah, we're having fun with it. Rob and I we have a blast making music together, and we're really happy that people have started to dig the record. I mean, it comes out in a couple weeks, but the few people that have heard it so far have been enjoying it, and that makes us feel great.
Yeah, when you when you make a record, we made this record at the right time in our lives. We did it together with we made an album with somebody that I absolutely can totally respect. When it was all said and done, I mean, I was just so proud of it that when one person likes it, to me, that's a win. You know what I mean? Just hearing you say that, Mike, is a big deal to us. When you're younger and you're like, why, I have to sell 30 million albums, to feel like I'm a real star. But, just hearing or people that I didn't even expect to like it, to call us and say, man, there's something very special about this. I can't stop listening to it. That's a big deal for us.
Well, let's kind of set the table for when you guys got together initially. You guys have known each other for a long time. So why don't you guys one at a time kind of tell your origin story from your point of view?
It all started for Jim and I at Berklee College of Music. We both went there. I think I was a senior. I think he was a sophomore or something like that. And we got to know each other there. And when you leave Berklee back in the day, you went to 3 places. You went to Nashville, you went to New York, you went to LA. So I knew I wanted to go to LA. And I went out there with a whole group of guys that we went to school with, which was great because I was able to have a support group. I didn't know anybody in Los Angeles, but I had 20 guys that went to Berklee with me. And it was wonderful. So I came out there first. And then Jim called me and said, "Hey, I'm about to graduate, thinking about coming out there." So it was wonderful. We got together, we hung out, we actually had apartments in the same complex. And then Jim went off on, touring with people, and I stayed in the studios. And we had about 10 years, 15 years or something like that. And then I actually called, maybe more.
Yeah. We kind of lost touch for a while.
Yeah.
We lost touch for quite a while. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I actually was doing a lot of studio work by myself. I was sitting there doing all the engineering, the writing, the playing, the producing, and all that, mixing. And I was tired of sitting in a studio by myself. And I called Jim. I said, "Hey, man, I don't know where you are, what you're doing, but you want to get together and just have a chat about maybe doing some writing or doing some producing or something together?" And he's like, "Yeah, come out to my house." So I came out, and he had a killer studio. And his wife, who was there, who I'd never met until then, she's an Iowa girl. She's from Okoboji. So yes, of course.
Right.
And so we that got me in the door. I was good.
As Rob said, we lost touch for a while. He reached out and I always respected Rob, and I always thought he was a great singer and a songwriter. And it was just, was weird after kind of not working together for so long. And then we, got together. I think probably one of the first things we did, we were just kind of mad at ourselves for letting so many years go by without working together, which was like, why haven't we been doing this for the last 10 years or whatever it had been? So, and as Rob said, my wife's from Iowa. And so there's a pretty strong connection there. And they hit it off really well. So, and I think shortly thereafter, my daughter was born, and, Rob's just kind of been around. But what was it funny too, is that we wrote some songs that weren't for other artists over the years, that we talked about doing some songs for me as a singer, or maybe some songs for Rob as a singer, but we never had this desire, or we never talked about kind of doing a band up until maybe the last 5 years or so. And I think we would kind of joke about, hey, we should do our own record, and, and stuff like that. And we were working with a blues rock band of all things up in Napa Valley, a band called Mama Said, which got their name from the Lenny Kravitz song. Right. And we had done a record for them before, where we wrote songs with them, and I produced it, and they had asked us to work with them again. And because of everyone's scheduling and the daily lives, we kind of had to pack a lot in a very short amount of time. And so we ended up going up to Napa to write some songs with them. And we wrote an incredible amount of songs very quickly. And I thought they were good too, because usually, if you rush, or, you can write a lot of things, but they're kind of not great or whatever. But we seemed to be firing on all cylinders. And as we were driving back to the airport, I had actually driven my car, and I was taking Rob to the airport, and we just both kind of looked at each other and said, okay, if we can write, this quickly, this well, for other artists, and, we're getting input from them, obviously, which in ways is helpful, but in ways, it's not always what you want to do. We thought, okay, we need to try this. And as Rob said earlier, we're at a point in our lives where I think both of us had chased solo artist careers. And when I say chased, I mean, not only chased trying to be artists, but like we were chasing other acts and that sort of thing. Because when you're young, at least for us, it's hard not to. But we're now hopefully a little older and wiser, and we said, listen, we're not going to chase anyone. We're gonna set a very strict set of parameters. We basically chose 3 to 5 albums, and we said, look, we're going to make a record. It's going to be centered around these albums that we love, that we have a genuine, like, deep love of, Rob and myself. It's Tears for Fears and Peter Gabriel. But the one band that we talk about, which isn't as well known, is a band called Scritti Politti, which, if you know 80s music, they had one pretty large hit. But, this is a band that for some reason, Rob and I, we would just listen to this record. They had 2 albums. We listened to them a lot, and we loved it. We had a deep, mutual affection for that. So we said, we want to make something that combines, these types of records. But and that's what we did. I think we achieved what we wanted to do.
Awesome. Rob and I talked last week a little bit about Scritti Politti, and I'm not as familiar with them as I am some of the other artists that you guys have cited, like Peter Gabriel. And I'm a massive Tears for Fears fan. My most favorite song is the Working Hour off Songs from
one of the best.
Dude, it's like, and it's kind of symbolic as to why I've become a fan of your band, is that song in particular sets a mood. It establishes growth. It has this great crescendo of feeling throughout the song. So it's awesome to hear that referenced.
And it's funny that's a song that we, one of the albums that we talked about, obviously Tears for Fears was a massive influence for us. not just because we love their songs, but also because it's a 2 lead singer band, right? So that was something that was important to us. We decided early on, okay, we're both going to sing all the choruses, and whether that's in unison or in one
Harmony,
guy sings the melody and harmony, and then we're going to trade off on verses, and we'll kind of just see how it goes. And that process was actually surprisingly simple. We never really kind of argued about who was going to sing what. We just would try it. A lot of times both of us tried, different parts, and it became very obvious which voice or voices, for this part. And we're both, again, pretty honest with ourselves about, one of us would do a thing and go, man, I don't know whatever it is. Or,
perfect example. I think it was, the first song we started doing vocals on, I got up on the mic, and when you're writing, you're not thinking about, it's like, oh, that sounds good, we'll be able to sing it fine. It was some song that I think it might have been Monsters, and I started singing the verse, and I was running out of air when I shouldn't have been, and it just wasn't singing right. I'm like, Jim, just sing the song. So there's a few of those on there, but we both like singing together, and our voices, even though they're a little bit different than each other, still kind of complement each other, whether it's harmonies, like he says, or unison, or going back and forth with each other. And I think that's what makes it kind of cool. If you think about Tears for Fears, they would have one whole song they would do. One of them would do the whole song, and the other one would do the whole song. And it's kind of fun to do it almost in a duet form. Almost all of our songs are now in a duet form, and I like it.
Yeah, you guys have such a solid blend of your voices, and not every band really has that. Whenever you have multiple singers, like usually it's like one is really distinctively one guy, one is distinctively another.
Yeah, right.
And your guys' voices blend so well together.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, it's strange how don't sound very disjointed. Because it is something that you would think, if you got one guy coming in on a verse and then the other guy coming on the second half of the verse or whatever, or we don't do that all the time, but sometimes usually one of us will take a verse and then the other will come in on the pre-chorus. But it's surprising how that kind of worked out. With most of the album, it seemed pretty natural.
Let's talk about the album title a little bit. It almost kind of feels like a manifesto. What does control mean to you guys, both creatively and personally?
I actually said this to Jim one time. He was actually surprised by my answer. But for me, losing control is not fulfilling the dreams that I have, or the plans that I have, or a project that I have. It's so easy to curl up on a couch, with a beer and watch murder shows or whatever, you do to just kind of waste time. But I always need to stay on top of one. Like, I remember when Jim and I sat down together to do this album, I'm like, we're going to finish this. It's happening. It's going to happen. So I always want to stay on top of it to make sure it actually gets done. So that to me is losing control.
Your production approach feels very meticulous. Lush harmonies, vintage synths, and analog textures. What does your studio process look like when you're chasing that balance between retro and modern?
Well, when we talked about the albums that, like, we had a handful of albums that we were going to use, we did the same thing in a lot of ways with the instrumentation. Right, Jim? I mean, that's a good kind of comparison.
Well, we knew. So the way we write songs is very traditional. So every song almost starts with me on the piano, but we use the CP70, which is the Yamaha CP70, which is it's Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins and Tears for Fears, and so we decided that would be kind of the anchor for the entire album. So we started with that. We're of the mindset that songs should be kind of, written where you could play it with one instrument and a voice, so we start there, and then we would probably come up with a groove surrounding that. But we were actually the first weekend where we wrote almost half the album, we were just kind of having fun because, when you write for other people, especially, we write with a lot of younger singer-songwriters, they don't really, they're not interested in vintage synths, or
Right.
the sounds that were being used on Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins and Tears for Fears and Depeche Mode records. And those were sounds that we really liked and kind of missed in modern production. So, our feeling was, there's so many people that still love those albums so much. Why don't we make an album that reminds us of that? And that is in the production and in the actual sound. So we would sample sounds from some of those albums, from certain drum parts or kind of strange sounds. And we did a lot of research and we saw what they used, what kinds of specific keyboards they were using. And, we're very fortunate. We have a decent amount of actual hardware synths here in the studio. But then with plugins, it's incredible because, like something like the CMI Fairlight, which is, to get your hands on that, it's going to cost you $75,000.
And it's also not going to be probably working right.
Right. Or a Yamaha CS80 or a Jupiter
Juno.
8. We have these plugins where we can get really close to those original sounds. So it was a blend. It was a big blend.
I think sticking with a game plan on the instrumentation for the most part was very helpful. It's easy to go in 50 different directions when it comes to the sounds you want to use and the textures you want to use. But I think another interesting thing with this is, would have been easy to just have a drum machine going, a couple of pads, and just say, okay, it's a synth pop album. But we also brought in some friends, an amazing guitar player, David Levita, and he played phenomenal parts. We had John Button playing bass on it. So there is some humanness to it, human aspects to it, humanness. But so we didn't want to just keep it in the box or make it very digital. We do have live players, which actually gives it a little bit of life.
Awesome. No One's Forgiven, the debut single. It dives into anger, division, and media manipulation. Very real emotions that we all have right now. How did that song come together, and what message were you hoping to capture in that energy?
One of the great things that I don't even think we knew when we set out to make this record, I didn't even almost realize. We just thought it would be fun to sing together and write songs that had the melodies that we wanted and the sounds that we wanted. But I wasn't personally even thinking lyrically. And one of the great surprises was how many songs that I had in me and song ideas that I wanted to get out that we can't do working with other people, again, and it's nothing against them, but if an 18-year-old girl comes in and wants to write a record that sounds like Olivia Rodrigo or Taylor Swift, they're not going to want to talk about political things, or they're not going to want to talk about deep
societal things,
deep-rooted psychology behind personal traumas, or things, therapy. And when we started writing, I don't even think we didn't even set out to do that.
Yeah, we didn't.
But we just started writing songs and let the musical, the musical starting point take us somewhere. And especially with everything that was going on in the world and in our country right now, a few of these songs just naturally came out in the frustration of our everyday lives. And I'm proud of that because, I don't think we're being preachy, but I think we were coming from a place of genuine frustration. Especially with No One's Forgiven. And, you can read into it however you want, but the political landscape and this division, it's hard to ignore right now. So that was a song that was born from our collective, just absolute we just feel like we're overwhelmed with this stuff. And so, to me, again, anything with a song that makes you feel less alone, that was my hope for it. Someone listens to it and goes, man, I'm not the only one who's like beaten down by this,
Yes. You guys have said that these songs capture your heart and your hurt. And I think we kind of covered that just now, but how do you translate something so personal into pop music without losing the emotion in layers of production?
I think you need to follow. It's a great question. I think once the lyrics, the song can be written, and once the lyrics are done, I think it kind of starts giving you its own roadmap as to, like a song like the last song, Secondhand Smoke, is obviously a very serious concept, and we wanted it to sound cold. And like, if you listen to the drum parts, they're very separated. It's not a drum pattern. It's these sounds kind of coming in and out. And I think that, if you open your ears up after you've written a song, I think it's pretty easy to find that roadmap when you say, listen to these lyrics, man. This is about frustration, or this is about loneliness, or this is about heartbreak, or this is about confusion, inner confusion. You got to follow those emotions musically, or it just doesn't work, there's a song on there as well called Osaka that people will be hearing one of these days. There's a sense of loneliness to that song. The song is about two ships passing in the night. And that song was actually originally, we sat down and we were trying to figure out what we were going to do for lyrics. And Jim came up with this great idea about, why don't we take a scene from a movie from the 80s or 90s and write it? And that last scene in Lost in Translation, where they don't say anything, that was such a beautiful moment. It captured both of us. So if you listen to that song, it's just one lonely keyboard for the most part, kind of meandering through it, while the two of us sing together almost in perfect harmony all the way through. And then there's this saxophone solo in it that conveys frustration, So I think that if you if you read the lyrics and you listen to where the song's going, you need to follow it, for better or for worse.
Now, I got to ask a personal question on my behalf. When are you guys going to release Silence as a single? And why is it not like right away? Because that is my most favorite song on the album.
Yeah, it's going to come out. Funny. It's going to come out. Yeah. We got a little, things got a little sideways over the last month because of this Moog situation.
Right.
So we're doing this wonderful project with Moog, this ad campaign with them, and they're doing it documentary style in the studio with us. So we wrote 2 new songs, and I think Silence probably would have come out after Walls if that Moog situation hadn't come in. And you know what? We'll probably put it out anyways. Nowadays you don't have to only have 3 singles. You can just keep going. Every song's going to be a single.
That leads to a really good question. Do you guys have big opinions about that? Because I'm going to tell you, I've done 200 plus episodes of this podcast, and what I ask guys on camera and the answers they give me on camera is a little bit different whenever the record button stops. But like the promotional and release strategy of this new music business that we're in now, where an album is basically 75% released before it drops.
Right. It's funny, when we had our first meeting with our PR person, she's like, okay, so when do you want the album to come out? What did I say, Jim?
So and this just shows you the personalities. I think we were on a call, it was like June 28th. Yeah. And Rob was like, July 1st, we're going to put this record out. Literally, like he said
10 singles simultaneously.
He was like, he's like, well, the record's coming out on Monday. And she's like, what? So, but again, it just shows also, I mean, Rob and I haven't been artists for so long.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, Mike, this is probably the biggest challenge for us. It's something that we're dealing with. Rob and I we just want to be in this room and in studios writing songs and making records and, eventually playing live and stuff like that. But the strategies and the social media campaigns and these types of things. And, it's funny because we got together one of the first times after the whole record was done, and we were supposed to, our publicist said, well, you have to get on and start doing all this stuff and thank everybody that we put the first song out. We did it for it felt like 10 hours. It was probably 30 minutes. And I was like, I'm done. I'm done. I can't do it. I was like, I can't. I'm like, we're done. We're done for the day. It was very Larry David of me. I was like, nope. So
so true.
But
so true.
Rob and I made a deal that we weren't going to chase on the making of the album in terms of songs, sonics, or anything. And then we had to remind ourselves, we're not going to chase anything. Now, look, we're going to put it out and we're going to try to promote it. But one of our friends said, oh, you guys should do like a TikTok challenge or something like that.
And you dance, Rob, and then you point to Jim, and then Jim starts dancing. We're like, we're out.
We're like, no, that's not happening. So it's tough. It's a tough thing because we just love the music and, we want it to be out. And that's a bit of all the strategy we know.
That is a challenge for anybody with a legit creative endeavor right now, especially. And I'm gonna throw the ageism of all of us out there, like especially guys of our generation and such, because I think people's social currency is different generationally to where a younger generation is into the quick bits. To where, guys that are a little bit, I'm not going to use the word old, I'm going to say seasoned, such as ourselves, guys that are a little more seasoned, we like to tell the whole story all at once, as opposed to leading breadcrumbs all over the place for people to chase and follow.
Yes.
Even as a podcaster, the social media game is awful.
Exhausting.
Oh,
it is awful. And what sucks about it, and I'm just gonna vent, what sucks about it is if you're not consistent about it, the numbers drop. They drop dramatically. And it's like, are we really at that place in society where the art itself doesn't speak for itself?
Well, the problem is that things come in so quickly and then they leave so quickly. And, that's funny. I remember when we first started doing this, I asked one of my friends, I said, we're going to make an album. And they're like, well, why don't you just make a bunch of singles and then just start putting them out? It's like, no, because I want something that is a collection, a true collection of a moment in our lives of writing and producing. And that album should be listenable from beginning to end. And instead of doing an EP, everybody does EPs. Jim and I are like, nope, we are going to do 10 songs on this record, no more, no less. And it's going to be a full, a full album, So and that's a rarity too. That's also a rarity,
I think also comes with age to not really care what anyone else thinks.
You bet.
I mean, you know, I run across it with artists all the time. Because look, we're all just trying to get it out there, and there's so hard, it's so competitive. But I've had artists who, they'll come in, I'll help them with their music, or Rob and I will help them, and they'll listen to our opinion for, a variety of or a certain length of time. But if they then go to Starbucks and run into some manager who got somebody something somewhere along the line, they will listen to that person for 3 months, and then they will spend a lot of money and nothing will come of it. And then they'll, a friend of a friend will put them in touch with someone else who did something, and then they'll listen to that person. And, again, that's just that whole, we're not going to do that. And like Rob said, we wanted to make an album. We didn't want to make a bunch of singles. It's like, we don't want to do that. We wanted to make something that reminded us of songs from The Big Chair or The Hurting,
Yeah.
or, Security, and all these records that we loved. So
I'm looking forward to the day that album comes out, and we're going to be doing vinyl. You're going to be able to buy vinyl on our website. I'm going to put that up in a frame somewhere, and just say like, and you can just look at it and go, I did that. You know what I mean? As opposed to it just kind of floating out in the middle of God knows where. It's like I can look at it and say, that is something I did when I'm 90 years old.
Yes.
Very important.
What's funny is, what we were just talking about is how monoculture has just all but vanished. But taking something that has this nostalgia to it, it's almost recreating monoculture, and physical media is a large part of that. For all the shit I could talk about younger generations right now, one of the most encouraging things that I've seen trending musically, so to speak, as the father of like 3 college girls and a high school teenage boy, is the reemergence of physical media. They're getting back into collecting vinyl. They're getting back into CDs. So that kind of gives me hope and optimism for the future of like full collections being a thing again.
We had our conversation with our publicist yesterday about how media is already getting tired of AI and are starting to shun the idea of, well, it's an AI, this and that. So, okay, we don't want that anymore. So I think people are going to always come back to real somehow, some way. They'll always work their way back to somebody in a room playing a guitar and singing, or playing piano and just singing, or whatever,
Yeah. But I was just saying, like, I see it with my daughter with even merchandise like sweatshirts and things like that. The kids that go to these concerts now, they want documentation in a physical form that they were there. They want a hat, they want a hoodie, they want a T-shirt, they want something that's tangible, which I think is great.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you remember, Mike? Don't you remember having an album and like when you get it, you weren't watching anything, you were listening, but you were looking at the cover or you were looking at the liner notes, and that was such a special. That was your multimedia, right? You're reading and you're listening and you're looking at pictures on that are made by the band. I think that's something that it's so simple and it's so beautiful, and I hope we get back to that.
Rob, I'm a big kid. I still do that shit.
Awesome. Good for you. We've all got.
I shit you not. In my dining room is my record player. I've got like all the old peach crates with all my vinyl in it.
Yeah.
I will sit down on the floor right next to the dining room table and start pulling records from the crates and start looking at the artwork and the smell, everything. It's like, it is totally a full encompassing experience.
Yeah, it is. And the tone of a record, there's something about that little going while that warm sound is coming out of your speakers, I think it's wonderful. And it's funny, I can kind of go away from it. And I've got, just like you, I got my record player and everything. And you kind of go away from it. Maybe I'm in the car and I'm listening to a bunch of stuff on Spotify or whatever. Then my wife and I'll have dinner one night and we'll have some cocktails and she'll pull out like, she loves Amy Winehouse. You put that on a record and it's like, oh my God, it just sounds so wonderful. Yeah, we got to keep that. We got to keep that going.
What's funny is there are certain genres of music that I've convinced myself or trained myself actually sound better on vinyl, like Bill Evans Trio, Dave Brubeck, John Coltrane, like that's the stuff, especially this time of year, whenever you get to late fall, early winter.
I'm the same.
That's what I want to listen to on vinyl.
But that being said, so think about the Boston album, the first Boston album. That is made for a record, man. You put a record on and you hear that Boston album. I mean, it just sounds so tight and so wonderful. Even listening to the mono Beatles albums, they sound so good. That's what they were made. They were made for that. In fact, Jim and I were talking about this yesterday about how records are, we say records, but like how albums were in the 90s were made to sound good on CD. And some of those albums that sound so great on CD because that was the medium that they were focusing that mix on. And that's a great point too, like probably that Seal album. I would love to hear that again on a CD as opposed to, Spotify or whatever.
Yeah. Yep. So let's talk flash forward. What comes next for Flight to London? You've called this album The Beginning. What does the next chapter look like? And are you already thinking about the next sound evolution or live performances?
So we actually already started really writing for whether it's record number 2 or whatever it may be. As Rob said earlier, we have a relationship with the company Moog synthesizers, which we use on the record. And we talked with them about doing a collaboration. Because when we have a friend who's in branding, and when we first, were making the record, he heard a couple tracks and he was very interested. And he said, well, who would you want to work with from a branding perspective? And, that was one of the companies that we really thought was important, because what they do is what we're trying to do, is you kind of take, something rooted in history, rooted in, classic analog and, and amazing architecture, but then push it forward, and that's what we're trying to do with, the type of music that we love. So they asked us if we wanted to do a collaboration, and we were going to do a recreation of some of the songs we've already written. But I thought, we were kind of already itching to write new songs again, because I know this is, we're just putting it out, but most of those songs were written probably 9 months ago or whatever it was. So we just got together and we started writing some new material, and we have 2 new songs, and they're going to be part of a feature with Moog. So that's on the horizon. We'd love to play live. It's been a little tough with both, all of our schedules and trying to, coordinate that. But, we, like I said before, we love writing and producing. So I think we're going to just continue doing that. And trying to get the music out there and see where it goes.
I was going to say, I think we'll obviously naturally evolve a little bit. We do like the sound that we created on this album. So, I mean, I think there's going to be still a lot of that in whatever we do. But yeah, we're going to always try to branch out a little bit. I think one of the songs on this, for Moog, called Elephant, is a lot more scritty palitty than the album that we've done. So that in itself is a bit of branching out. But yeah, I mean, I think we all naturally evolve. So I'm as curious as you are as to exactly how that's going to happen, but it will, and it'll happen in a good way, I think, because the great thing about being in this band is we both check each other. We both check what we're doing, and we can check each other without being like getting butthurt about it. You know what I mean? If something doesn't work, we usually both know it. And it's great to be able to bounce things off, or if we just go, a lot of times when we're writing lyrics, we'll both go, doesn't sing right. That doesn't sing right. We'll get a word and it's like, and then I'll be like, really? And then I'll be like, yeah, it doesn't sing right. You're right. That's always a big one for us. It'd be like, nope, that's too soft. That's too, that word's too soft for that moment. So it's great to have a collaboration. I mean, to collaborate with somebody else. So I'm looking forward to it myself, but I'm really looking forward to playing live. I know it's gonna sound awesome. Hopefully we'll be doing that in the new year, and see where that takes us. We just want to keep moving forward,
Yes. And I got to tell you guys that new music urge, it's palpable. Like, you get an album in the can and you're just waiting to release that album, but you've already have a half another album written, and you're like, oh yeah, shit, I want to put out this new stuff. I'm already tired of this old stuff.
Exactly.
Tell me an artist that doesn't feel that way, for real.
It's so true. And I'm sure it's the same way when you play live. I mean, Jim could speak to this, but like, you play 47 shows or something like that, and you're playing all the songs that the new stuff that everyone's hearing. But like you said, there's going to be a 5 or 6 in your pocket. They're like, I can't wait for that one to, to get out there and play that too. But it takes time, doesn't it?
And sometimes you have to have that asshole in the band that puts their foot down and say, we got to play the stuff they know first. Trust me,
Right.
I was that asshole. That's me.
That's me. Jim's going to be like, dude, we're going to do a raga version of, just to keep it interesting to himself, and keep
that won't be me. That won't be me. No, but what is strange though is Rob and I were saying the other day, when we made the record, we were, you get into a black hole of time. And now that it's finished, we almost don't even know how we made that. Like it was just a strange, because it was so kind of quick. Like, because I do a lot of touring with the Goo Goo Dolls and a lot of production, and Rob's got other production and things going on. And when we were together, we had to be extremely focused and extremely present, because we don't live in the same city, and we have a lot of other things going on. So when we would get in this room, 12 hours would fly, and it was like, and then we would kind of, we'd be exhausted. And then the next day we'd listen and go, oh my God, like what, we did all that or whatever. And now, now that it's done, like we'd listen to it. Sometimes we're like, I don't even know, how did we get this done, or how did we even, figure this all out? And because we just kind of had our head down,
Well, we had plans to have somebody else mix the record. And we'd had a great conversation with David Bascom, he's a legendary mix guy who did the Tears for Fears stuff, and he's done Depeche Mode, and he's worked with Gabriel, British guy living in Bath, England. And the reality was that it was like, our heads are so into it right now. Having a third brain come in at the 1 yard line, and our heads would have exploded. So we said, okay, that's it. We're going to just have to mix this ourselves. Now, we had some friends come in and help us do some engineering stuff here and there. But we just sat there and mixed that thing. And then Jim would go off for a week and do something, and then we'd come back, and it'd be like, okay, here's our notes, and our notes would be the same on every mix.
Most
so we
time,
would just go back in there and tweak. But yeah, it's even funnier. Jim was just sitting down to figure out the chords, and stuff and Jim's like, wait, what is that chord? How did we, wait a second, this is it's not as easy, even though you wrote it yourself. It's like, he says, it's like somebody else wrote it. It's very weird.
I was actually going to ask that if you ever had to reteach yourself your own song.
Yeah. Well, this record, one of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted to write songs that had key changes and melodic movement that wasn't really centered in one key necessarily all the way. It wasn't a hard and fast rule, but we tried to challenge ourselves within the writing of the songs, because a lot of those songs that we love, they play chords that are out of the key. They have the bridges go to different places, and they just keep it very interesting. And so by nature of us trying to do that, which was pretty challenging for some of them, I was just playing random chords, random things, and say, does this work? And then we would try a thing, and no. And then, sometimes I would come up with something, or we'd hear something and go, mate, is that maybe, and then it's like, I think it can. And then we would do it, and we would just kind of go for it. And then again, like when we tried to go back and check it out, I was like, what is this? So it was kind of fun. And that's one of the things I'm really proud of.
New music, and I'm not putting it down by any means. There's a lot of very simple chords going over and over and over and over and over and over. And the albums that we're still listening to 30 years later are the ones that are interesting enough to keep the interest going. You know what I mean? You listen to that Scritti Politti album, one of those albums where like The Hurting by Tears for Fears. To me, it's just as interesting today as it was when I heard it the first time. So we wanted to stay in that kind of vein, and find little things that would make it interesting enough so when you heard it for the 30th time, like you said, you'll find something new in it.
Yes. It's funny you mentioned that. Like, I was listening to Sting the other day, and Englishman in New York came out. And
come on, dude.
Like, I listened, it had been a long time since I'd heard it, and I was like, God, he threw a lot of swerves in that song.
Yes,
if you're not musically
the drum break, the New York, the New York drum break.
Yes. And it's like, if you're not musically inclined, you're kind of like, what the hell is this? Did he changed songs midway through and then came back to it? But it's awesome,
Sting and the Police are influences that we don't mention a lot, but I know that they're both for us. They're
massive.
They're in the conversation because that guy changes keys in every song. It's like,
and you don't feel it. That's the cool thing about it.
After chorus 2, there's a key change or a bridge that goes in a different, it's either chorus in a different key, bridge in a different key. And we love the Police. I mean, it doesn't really come out. I don't think we sound anything like them, but their influence is definitely there.
I think we both like intellectual pop, things that make you think a little bit more, a little bit less about the club, and a little bit more about some emotions or things outside in the world that you would be surprised to be able to connect to. I'm a big XTC fan. I love XTC. I think Andy Partridge is one of the greatest lyricists of all time. I grew up listening to Rush. I grew up listening to U2. I mean, talk about lyrics. I mean, that band is unbelievable. So Jim and I both have always loved good melodies, and hopefully with those good melodies comes some interesting chord progressions and lyrics. So that's what we tried to do on this, to give it a little bit of thought,
I love that. And it translates really well in the album. And I don't think I would have listened to it as much as I have. And I have listened to it a ton, guys. If I didn't truly love it. And I absolutely do love it. So why don't you tell my audience, when is Instructions for Losing Control going to drop?
November 21st?
21st.
Yes.
November 21st.
Yes, and it'll be.
I still get stuck on Tuesday release days. It's the Friday thing still fucks me up.
I'm still kind of freaking out that we're putting it out around the holidays. Because like back in the day, you'd be like, oh, you can't put it out during the holidays. Aerosmith's putting something out. So yeah, I'm still freaking out about that. But yeah, so we're gonna. In fact, this week I'm getting everything organized for the pressing of the album. So it's kind of cool because this company you order it, they will press it just for you and send it out to you. And that's kind of, instead of us having to buy 10,000 albums, hoping somebody buys them. But yeah, I'm going to be doing that this week, putting that together. It's going to obviously be on the Spotifys of the world and the Apple iTunes music and all that stuff. And hopefully we'll have a video coming up one of these days for Walls. We're in the middle of that's another thing we're in the middle of.
It's in the works.
It's in the works. And it's funny when we talk to our publicist, it's like, there's always going to be something happening every about 2 or 3 weeks with Flight to London for the next couple of months. So, hopefully people will, check out the Flight to London.music or find us on Instagram. What is it, Jim? Is it Flight to London Music, right?
I think Flight to London Music, is, yeah.
Yeah. So, just hopefully people will kind of keep track of what we're doing, because there's going to be a lot of new things happening over the next couple of months. So
I love it. Guys, my final question and my closing question, and you guys can answer one at a time. Keep it simple and true to yourselves. But what's your advice for making the world a better place tomorrow than what it is today through your eyes and your experience?
I mean, look, we're having a lot of problems in this country with people who just refuse to listen to somebody who seems to be from a different point of view or a different mindset. We got to get back to finding general kindness towards each other and just listen, and not so much talking, a little more listening, right, Jim? But that's But
it's an
I think
inside joke, but yeah,
it's an inside joke. But I think that's right now for me. That's what we have to do is show a little kindness and just do a little more listening.
I'm gonna say that. I mean, in general, kindness it's a free thing to do. It really doesn't require any more effort. I actually think it requires less effort than being, combative or argumentative. But I think, and not to get too heady on it, but the root of it is every person is powerful. Everyone can walk into a room and affect the room in one way or the other. And that's something I think about a lot. And as a person with a somewhat larger personality, I know that if I walk in a room as the best version of me, that room's going to be better. And if I walk in as the worst version of me, that room's going to be worse. I think it was Bono was talking about, he's had a line somewhere where he said, a song came on and it changed the temperature in the room. Right. And I always loved that. I thought, so I know that, a lot of times we think our opinion doesn't really matter, or we think we're small and no one's really paying attention to us. But each person can go into a room or a situation, a family gathering, whatever it is, and go, man, I'm going to be the best version of me in this. And I think if we all try to do that a little bit more, we might lighten up a little bit, I don't know. That's all I got.
I love that. My friend that I've had on the show as a co-host for some future episodes that are going to drop, his line always is, the way you do one thing is the way that you do everything. And I think that kind of summarizes both of your guys' points about kindness and open-mindedness and the ability to communicate a lot better than the way that we have been. As a guy that uses a digital platform, podcasting, it's funny to hear me shame social media, but sometimes when we've given everybody a soapbox and everybody tries to use it at the same time, it's an effort to see who the loudest person can be in the room at all times.
It's a great point. So true. So true.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jimmy, Rob, I am so glad to know you guys now. I'm a fan of your band. You guys call me a friend because I'm definitely calling you guys a couple of friends. You're
on my cell phone.
Flight to London. Their album, Instructions for Losing Control, drops November 21st, 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, go check it out as soon as possible. I will firmly say this, and I don't have to say this just because the guys are in front of me. One of my most favorite albums of the year, easily. Check it out as soon as it drops. I am so excited. Jimmy, Rob, thank you guys so much for doing the show.
Thanks,
the world is a much better place with you guys in it.
Oh, man.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. We appreciate you, buddy.